Hey readers, it's Mr. Marshall at Stony Lane. Last time we were together, we made this list, right? Stuff that you can know about fantasy books because you're about to read fantasy books. And so I wanted to teach you about one more thing that you can be thinking about while you're reading your fantasy book. Okay, and that is this next thing I'm going to teach you is something that happens in fantasy books sometimes, but it kind of happens in all different books. Okay. But it happens a lot in fantasy too, so I thought I would share this with you. Okay. Um, when a character goes from one place to another inside of a book, their feelings also change. Or sometimes we can even say it's more than just their feelings, it's like they change. They become braver, they become better people, they become, more compassionate, they become something. Okay. And that's something that, like, when there's a big trip inside of a book called a journey, it's something that the author might want you to think about. Okay. And even if they don't, it's good to think about it. Okay. And I learned about this in college, and it's called journey metaphor. Okay. Journey metaphor. So I'm going to show you how you can think about that in your book. Okay. Ready? So I'm going to show you. This is my reader's notebook. It's not really my reader's notebook, but this is what my reader's notebook could look like. There's a page on the left and a page on the right. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is, as I'm reading, and I start noticing that in my book, the character is going somewhere on a long trip. So I can start to do this kind of thinking inside my reader's notebook. Okay. It's almost like a timeline, but it's going to look different. Okay. It's kind of like how my character is going. So on the page on the left, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing a map. That's right, a map. Just like wherever my character is going, I'm going to draw it. Okay. So I'm going to think about the book, James and the Giant Peach, which maybe you know, maybe you don't, but I think you get it. Okay. Once I start telling this, so James and the Giant Peach is a story about a boy named James, and in the beginning of the book, he lives with these two really, really mean ants, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker, because his parents died and they're taking care of him, but they're not really taking care of him very well. They're really mean and they make him do all his work and they beat him up and stuff like that. And so he lives in England um, with his aunts. And so I'm going to draw a picture of his house where he lives with Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker. Okay. So that's happening on the page on my left. On the page on the right, I'm going to draw another map. It's going to be everything's in the same place, but instead of drawing where he is, I'm going to write about what kind of person he is. What are his feelings? Okay. So like right here, same place on the map. He's feeling very lonely because his aunts are so mean. So I'm going to just write a few words. Mean aunts. And he feels like he'll never have friends because he has no friends. He feels like he'll never have friends and he's pretty hopeless. That's a good word. I'm going to put hopeless. And then what happens is this magical thing happens, and this peach on a peach tree in his yard grows to be giant. And he goes inside the peach. So I'm going to draw the peach here, and I'm going to write what happens to him, because what happens is inside he meets these insects, and they're all like giant too. There's a spider, and there's a grasshopper, and there's a centipede, and I think there's 7 of them. And so he starts making friends. So I'm going to put friends, but he doesn't really know them very well yet, and he's kind of like he doesn't trust them yet. Okay, but he's starting to get friends. At least he knows someone that's like nice to him. They're not hurting him or anything like that. And then what happens is this peach rolls down the hill, and it kind of goes through the city and everything, and there's all this danger, because just imagine being in this like large peach and it's rolling and insects are bumping all over you and everything. And then it rolls into the ocean. So I'm going to draw the ocean there, and that's where James has an idea of how he can save them. So I'm going to draw the ocean here, and he has an idea. and they get these seagulls to like lift them up with strings, and they're flying over the ocean. So now he's going up, and Peach is up here over the ocean. And at that part of the book, what are his feelings? Well, at that part of the book, James's friends, the insects, keep turning to him like, James, think of something, think of something. And James sort of becomes like their leader. He's the one who comes up with all the ideas. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm like, I've got my map on the left that shows where James is, and my map on the right that shows kind of like his feelings. Do you see how he's going from lonely to mean, lonely and having mean aunts and everything, to getting some friends and then getting an idea and then becoming their leader? He's changing as he's moving. Okay. And then he goes on and he ends up in New York City with all its tall buildings. That's like a really bad building right there. Sorry. And so we're just going to call this New York City. And so on this map, I'm going to write, you know, well, here, he's like their hero. And they say, well, James, he's the one that saved us. And he goes from being this lonely little kid that never ever had friends and never will have friends to being like this hero, right? And this map kind of shows like each step of the way. Okay. So if you see that your character is moving from place to place inside your story, you can do what I just did in your reader's notebook. As you're reading the book, you can draw a map on one side of where your character is, and then on the other side, draw a map again. And instead of writing where they are, kind of write where they are as a person and how they are changing as a person. And then that could be something really cool that you talk about and think about with a partner, or your teacher, or just on your own. Okay, try that out. It might give you like a whole new life in your story. Okay, and I'll see you next time.